Good morning, Sri Lanka. Welcome to the show on the 31st of December 2013. You're here with me, Amaya, on the last day of the year. That's right. So it's come to the end of another year as well. I'm sure it's been full of ups and downs and all sorts of things that you wanted to achieve, maybe you didn't achieve, great things that you didn't imagine you would achieve, but it all comes together at the end of this year, and I hope that it was a great one for you as well as everyone you love at home. And it's been great for us here at Good Morning Sri Lanka as well to come to you every morning and to bring you some of the latest that's happening here in Sri Lanka. We've had some great guests on the show as well, and we've talked to you about so many things, from sports to health to food to nutrition and all everything in between. So it's been a great year for us as well. And to round off the year, let's talk about New Year's resolutions. Now, my resolution this year, or for the next year rather, is to learn a new language, because there are so many languages in the world that, I know Sinhala and I know English, but that's about it. So why not diversify a bit? So my resolution next year is to learn a new language. And on that note, we have some really great guests who will be joining me later on in the show as well. But since this is the last day of the year, we decided to do something a bit different. So we're going to look back at some of the top news stories that were there all around the world during the past year, that's 2013. And if we start off in January, now January 7th, the month started off on a bit of a sad note because of the gang rape of the student that happened in India early last year, and that was due to 5 people, and she was hospitalized. 2 weeks later she passed away in Singapore, and that really shook the women's rights movement to its core in India, and it brought up a lot of debate about the failure of the police to protect women in India, and that was a really rare national debate for something like that to happen in India. So that really brought a lot of attention to this issue from all around the world to the subcontinent. And then later on as well, President Obama was sworn in for the second time. Now he is the first black president of the United States of America, and he was sworn in for his second term at a very small private ceremony held at the White House. So along with that, many news stories that happened in January. Let's go take a look. That was a look at all the top news stories of January 2013. Now moving on to February, something that caught everyone's attention was the scandal surrounding Oscar Pistorius. He was an Olympic as well as Paralympic track star, and he was known as the Blade Runner for his running because he used prosthetics. But he was accused of shooting and murdering his girlfriend earlier in February, and it was something that was a blow to everyone who looked up to him, because he really was considered an inspiration for most of the track stars out there. But that case is ongoing, and moving on to the Arabian region, the Arab Spring that occurred in 2012 continued in 2013 as well, but there was more added turmoil in Egypt as well as Syria and surrounding regions. So that's another great headline from February, which got a lot of attention from all around the world. And of course, Pope Benedict XVI, the first pontiff to resign from his position and leave the Vatican without serving his entire life as Pope in 6 centuries. So he left the Vatican and he moved to his summer house. So let's go have a look at some of the top stories that occurred all around the world in February 2013. All around the world that happened in February 2013. Now how about that? A meteor shooting across the sky, exploding into so many thousands of pieces and injuring about 1,000 people in central Russia. Now those are not stories you hear about every day in all the years that I've heard. That's the first time I've heard of a meteor injuring so many people. But that happened over central Russia in February 2013, and also the really poignant image of Pope Benedict XVI getting into that helicopter and taking off for the last time from the Vatican, leaving the papacy vacant. And that was something that was a moving story for Catholics as well as people all over the world, because that's the first time in 6 centuries that a pontiff has left the papacy vacant without serving his entire life as the Pope. And moving on to March. Now March, we saw the cardinals from all over the world coming together to the Vatican City to elect a new Pope. and the white smoke could be seen from the chimney of the Vatican. The Pope was elected in March 2013, and that was Pope Francis, and he has been a man who has been amazing this entire year. He's made headlines all over the world for some of the drastic changes that he has made in the papacy as well during the last year. And in fact, with the end of the year 2013, he was also named as Time Magazine's Person of the Year. But in March, he was elected as the Pope. During just 10 or 11 very short months, he has made such a dramatic change. And you could see the video that you will see coming up, that all the people all over the Vatican Square, St. Peter's Square, as well as all over the world, jubilant because of the election of this new Pope. And he's brought in a lot of change as well. On another note, the president of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, who established a socialist regime in Venezuela for about 14 years, passed away, and his funeral was something that marked a big step in the political scene there in South America as well, where we saw that even from all over the world there were diplomats as well as celebrities who came for his funeral. And we will see the Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, as well as US Oscar winner Sean Penn. So his funeral is something that attracted a lot of news and a lot of eyes from all over the world. So on that note, let's go see some of the news stories, the top news stories of March 2013. Good morning, Sri Lanka. Welcome back to the show. You're here with me, Amaya, and we are taking a look at the top news stories that occurred in 2013, because it is the 31st of December. So it's time to take a recap of what's been happening all around the world during the last year. Now, moving on to the month of April, on a somber note, the Baroness Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady of England, passed away at the age of 87 after fighting through a few bouts of illness. And even the Prime Minister of the UK, David Cameron, has stated that she was not only a lady who led the nation, she was a lady who saved the nation. So it was on a very somber note that diplomats from all over the world attended her funeral, and she is someone who has inspired generations of women through her iron will as well as her determination. So that was a news story that made headlines all over the world. And as well, there was another story that caught everyone's attention, and that was the Boston bombings. The two bombings that happened at the end of the Boston Marathon caught the attention of people all over the world, and one suspect is now in custody while the other was killed in a police shootout. So again, terror attacks all over the world, catching the eye of the United States government as well as governments all over the world, because they are things that people should look out for, and you can never be take for granted the security of the people all around you. So again, news stories that shook the world in April 2013. Let's go take a look. And that was some of the top news stories from April 2013. Now moving on to May and June, a lot of weather-related disasters happening all around the world, from tornadoes in Oklahoma City to floods in Germany, as well as the Ganges overflowing in India. So weather is again something that affects the lives of people all over the world. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or you're poor or where you live. It's something that natural disasters affect us all over the world. And the same thing happened in May and June 2013 as well, which made headlines all over the world. And in celebrity news, Angelina Jolie made her first public appearance after getting a double mastectomy, after discovering that she possessed a gene which gave her an 87% chance of developing breast cancer during her life, and that chance was reduced to 5% after doing the surgery, so which sparked a lot of debate about women's health in general. And she has become a very strong spokesperson rather in this regard. And then of course there was the whistleblower Edward Snowden of the United States, who revealed that the American government had been violating some of the privacy laws that are established there in the States as well. And he made the public statement in London's Guardian newspaper, which caused a lot of controversy all over the world and a lot of grief for the American government actually. So along with that, a lot of great news stories happening in May and June 2013. Let's go take a look. The top news stories that happened in May and June 2013. Now, if you've been wondering, wow, so many things have been happening all around the world in 2013, well, we're doing a recap here on Good Morning Sri Lanka of all the top news stories that happened within the last year, because it is the 31st of December. And when it's the last day of the year, it's always nice to look back and see what's been happening all around the world during the past year as well. Now, moving on to July, a story that really caught everyone's attention was the overthrowing of the Islamist President Mohamed Morsi in Egypt. Now, he was elected after the Arab Spring, of course, where President Hosni Mubarak was overthrown as well. But again, we find that last year as well, the President of Egypt, Mohamed Morsi, again was overthrown, which caused a lot of rejoicing in the streets, but also a lot of debate about the future of the country, the future of Egypt as a nation, and where it's really going to go. So again, this verdict is still in the balance. And moving on to another story that got everyone's attention is the story of Malala Yousafzai, the Pakistani girl who was the victim of an assassination attempt by the Taliban, and she actually addressed the United Nations after her recovery, and that same day it was her 16th birthday, and Ban Ki-moon has also announced that that particular date will be named Malala Day from now on. So many news stories that caught your attention in July 2013. Let's go take a look. Up news stories of July. Now, that was very exciting, the birth of Prince George, who is the third in line for the succession of the throne of England, and you could see that his parents, Catherine and William, were very happy when he was born, and that was a media event as well. All eyes all over the world were turned towards that event, and of course I'm sure that they're very happy with their baby boy. And moving on to news in August 2013, now what really got everyone's attention was all the unrest and turmoil that was happening in Syria, and especially the capital of Damascus. Many refugees moving out of Syria to the surrounding countries such as Lebanon, and many refugee camps set up, and their plight is really something that many NGOs as well as many countries, governments around the world were trying to help them, because the situation in Syria, which is still unresolved at the moment, was just getting started and it was getting worse at that point. So let's go look at some of the top news stories which occurred in August 2013. August, we see that this issue of turmoil and unrest in Syria continued to September as well as October, where the US President Barack Obama as well as world leaders everywhere decided that they will take a stance against the chemical weapons possession of Syria, as well as they urged other countries to stop diplomatic ties with Syria as well. So Syria was in the news for maybe not great reasons, but reasons that really brought the world's attention to this problem of turmoil and unrest in a political situation, and how countries all over the world can act in a way to help out one country in need and the people of that country who are in need. So let's go look at some of the news stories of September and October 2013, and we'll be right back on Good Morning Sri Lanka. I'm going to stop rounding off the news for you because Wasam will be on the show tomorrow, and he will be taking you through the end of the year 2013 and some of the top news stories that happened all around the world. The 1st of January 2013, that's going to be. But on today's show, that's it for the news roundup, because we are going to be speaking to some very interesting guests after I come back from the break, and they are from a very established organization here in Sri Lanka, and they're going to help me out with my New Year resolutions. So we'll see them right after the break. Stay with us on Good Morning